Do you ever get the feeling of being almost at the mercy of strange feelings that surface at unexpected moments that become overwhelming and impossible to control? Like maybe that dark grey fog of depression that kind of creeps up out of the depths and takes over, like fog blocking out the sunlight, so that you can't manage to find happiness no matter how hard you try. Or that weird feeling of anxiety that surfaces at 3 o'clock in the morning when you can't stop worrying about something that may never happen, but no matter how hard you tell yourself that, your body will not stop doing its panicky thing. Well, this is a video about where those feelings might come from and how we might begin to understand them a little more kindly so that they don't scare us quite so much, and maybe if we understand them a bit better, we can begin to work with them more effectively so that we start to be in more control of our lives and they're not running the show quite so much. There's a brilliant video you can Google on TED Talks by a lady called Jill Bolt Taylor, who was a neuroanatomist. In other words, she studied brains for a living, and when she was 37 she had an enormous stroke. A blood clot formed in the left side of her brain, which completely wiped out the whole part of her brain responsible for kind of verbal processing. And as part of that, she was able to chart this experience where she gradually lost all sense of past and future and time. She couldn't see the difference between her arm and the energy, the world around it. Everything kind of blended into one. And what she says when she talks about the experience is that in that state of wordlessness, she found herself living in a kind of nirvana in which she felt herself to be in a state of ecstasy at pretty much all times, kind of gliding through this beautiful sense of oneness with everything all the time. And when an uncomfortable emotion like pain, fear, anger, distress of any sort came into her system, she could set her watch and it would pass in 90 seconds flat. Now surely if emotions like that could pass through our system in 90 seconds, we wouldn't be so afraid of them. I remember reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which I'm sure many of you will have at least come across. I'm thinking there's something in this, isn't there? This being in the now business, because most of our emotions become so overwhelming and so hard to deal with because they're never just about what's happening now. Something like this happened to me just this week. A friend of mine made a comment to me about how she didn't feel it was right to expect unconditional love from me as her friend. That's the kind of thing you only get from your family. Oh, the distress that surfaced in my system, uncontrollable, overwhelming emotion, which I just couldn't contain. And it wasn't just about my friend basically telling me that she didn't actually feel unconditionally loved by me. What actually came up, it was like, there's the first little piece of this. Let's follow this string right the way down through your history, Hilary. It's like pulling up a piece of hair that you see coming out of the plug hole, and as you pull there's all this gunk and millions of hairs and like months and years of grime and grot that have all attached to it, and there's this massive long hair covered in all this stuff that's gone all the way down the drain. And way down at the bottom of that was a tiny little girl, me, who's still here somewhere, kind of feeling like I used to feel around my mum as a kid, that I didn't ever manage to get it right, to be loving enough, to be good enough, to be kind of like sparkly enough or effusive enough to kind of show love in the way that she thought I should be showing love, for reasons to do with my own stuff. But I just always felt I couldn't match up when it came to loving people. I thought I was a bit of a failure at it. And that sense of distress and failure is still lurking in there, and it really hurts. So somebody saying something to me about that, which may well be about their personal revelation about not expecting too much of your friends, actually taps right into like strata of distress that I've experienced over and over again through my history since being a tiny tot. And most feelings are like that. They don't just relate to now. If I can just be in the now, maybe feelings become manageable. but they're never like that. Feelings are connected to things that have happened to us over and over again. Repeated hurts where we get poked on the same sore spot and it opens the wound again, over and over again. Or we're worrying about what may happen in the future. If this happens, then this, then this, then this, which is the anxiety pattern. And so the big question for me is, that's all very well if we could manage to just be in the now, but we can't, because most of us have a left brain that is functioning, and our left brain is obsessed with ordering things, seeing patterns, working out connections, and we have an amygdala that's constantly scanning the environment and working out if this looks like a potentially threatening situation based on all the other previously threatening situations I've ever seen in my life. We cannot live in the now. There's even a recent study published in The Lancet, which is based on medical research, which shows that fetuses in the womb basically experience themselves as one organism with their mother, and therefore if she is depressed, anxious, stressed, fearful, the baby receives all those chemicals, all those hormones, all that physical experience of how it feels to be in those emotions, as if those emotions are its own. It doesn't know they're the mother's feelings, it feels them. So it may even be that right from being in the womb we had the physical felt sense of depression or anxiety, fear, distress running through our systems as our brains, as our spinal cords, as our cells were developing. So it might even be just physically threaded through our physical beings. It might just be a familiar feeling that is happening to us. But you know what? If that's the case, it doesn't really help for me to say, these feelings are not real, they will pass. Because when we are in those feelings, they can be so overwhelming that it's like disappearing into a black hole from which we don't know if we'll ever escape. The secret to me has been finding ways of giving the feelings some house room so that they're not hugely frightening skeletons in my cupboard that I'm desperately running away from because I'm terrified they're going to swallow me up, whilst equally finding ways of allowing them to kind of be a part of me without taking over completely and running the show. Because I don't know about you, I don't want to be run by unpleasant, difficult feelings, which on an intellectual level I know are not all of me, because quite a lot of the time I am happy, I am confident, I am peaceful. I also have times of incredible anxiety, immense fear, huge distress, anger and frustration, and pain and depression. These things are part of human experience, so we have to find a way of being with them without them taking over. If you'd like to find out more about this, watch the other video, because what I talk about there is one very concrete way that you can use to begin to work with overwhelming emotions so that you learn how to be in control of them rather than them running your life. See you later.